as for connecting with a dog using food, I can give you an example. I work with a lot of aggression cases, and I've had many cases where people come to me and say, my dog is very aggressive towards visitors in the house. And the first thing I do before, preparing for a case like that is food. So preparing the most delicious food, because I know that when I come over, I'll be a trigger for the dog. And that dog doesn't know me yet. So in order to gain its trust, I have to use something that the dog, is very primary reinforcing to the dog. And playing and affection, that will, you will have to connect with the dog first. That will take time before the dog trusts you to, touch it. And perhaps, especially these aggressive dogs, they don't want to be touched.
Right.
And playing is not in their system when a person they don't know is coming over.
Right.
However, I have found that if I come over, and I always tell these people, I'm going to call you when I'm outside, and we won't meet in the house, because if you meet in the house, that's more threatening to a dog. And I start throwing food, and you will immediately see the brain going like, hang on, this person that I don't know yet and I don't trust yet is offering me food. So that's interesting. I'm going to change my behavior now. And you see them stopping barking, and often I can even ask them to do things. I can ask them to sit or look at me and toss treats. And through the food, I actually gain their trust.
Right.
And I also get a connection. And, in many cases, I can even come inside and have the dog off leash. Right. And in that case, food has actually helped me to connect with the dog.
Right.
But it differs per dog. So it's not black and white, it's always gray.
Right.
And, some dogs will not take food. But it's not to say that using food will not enhance your bond or the emotional connection, because it will.
Right.
If your dog knows that you're a food provider, he will definitely love you for it. Also emotionally.
Right.
So that's good to know, because I think it's... I understand what you're saying, and I think it's also true in a lot of ways that many people use food the wrong way, and many people also feel that they're bribing a dog when they're using food and stuff like that. But I actually think that either way, if a dog is interested in you, if you're able to influence its behavior, there's always something at play. And it's never magic. It's never an invisible connection. It's always, you can always break it down to, okay, there's some sort of advantage for the dog to change its behavior to your liking. Even though we love to believe that it's energy, or, a lot of people call it energy and stuff like that. And I'm always like, no, I look at the videos and I can definitely see there's something else is happening in the brain. And usually they're expecting good things, and a lot of times they're expecting bad things, and we're changing their behavior. And you can see that in their body language. So body language is very important.
Right. You can see it, yeah. Visually, they give you all the signals and signs. And I want to dig in a little bit in this topic, the aggression. And so, like, for example, I agree with the concept, an aggressive dog would, it's a good idea to throw food and encourage the dog.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
In this case, it's a dog who's aggressive towards people.
Right.
I do have to say one thing, that I do this because I'm a therapist, and I would not recommend people who are not experienced to do that.
Right.
Why? Because a dog may start to approach you because it wants food, but it's actually also scared of you. So it could be really risky to use food if you're not experienced. And if I do this, the dog is on leash, and I have all kinds of safety precautions at play. That's important to say, because
Right.
I don't want people to start throwing food at aggressive dogs if they're not experienced. It was just more of an example how you can emotionally connect with a dog using food as well. Maybe a bad example, maybe a dangerous example.
It means basically you have to know what you're doing, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
You have to be professional approaching this case, certain case like that. For example, me, if I'm working with aggressive dogs, one of the first things that I look at it is that, you know, the emotional state of that dog, right? That I feel like, okay, this dog, the reason it's aggressive is because something is causing it stress, to get stressed, anxious, right? And obviously it's not me. I'm not taking it personally. It's not me that it's the dog aggressive. It's just in general, the dog doesn't know how to deal with this problem of people, for example. There's this problem and doesn't have the solution. And I think one of the reasons that...
I think it does have a solution, though.
It doesn't know how to solve it.
It does, because aggression is actually extremely functional for dogs. And it definitely is a solution for the dog. But it's not very handy. It's not a solution for human safety.
Right.
But realize that for the dog, aggression is very functional and usually successful for them too, because you'll keep at a distance.
Results, right? Yeah.
So it's not like they don't know how to solve it. They definitely do know how to solve
it. But the wrong way of solving.
But it's for us. It's not very safe.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's very important to also mention. So when I feel that this dog is anxious or stressed and is choosing to use aggression to solve this problem, right? Which is, as you say, it makes so much sense that is a way that this dog has selected or chosen to solve this problem. Now, why is it that a dog would be aggressive towards people, for example, or dogs or objects or anything like that?
There can be many reasons. I have an article on aggression on my website in which I explain the many emotions that can drive aggression. And, in many cases, it's fear, but I sometimes see frustration as well. Pain, physical discomfort is a very, very big reason for dogs to become aggressive, because they simply do not want to interact. They don't want to have close interactions. I see that very often when dogs are aggressive, when people try to pet them, an example. They mean well, but they don't know that touching the dog is painful, so the dog displays aggression to stop the interaction. Dogs can also become aggressive if they want to mate and there's another dog present, so then it becomes a competition. Right. But then you also have lust playing there, so you have two types of emotions. But I think the most common emotions that drive aggression are physical discomfort, fear, and frustration. And those are the most common emotions that drive aggression, especially against humans.
Biological, behavioral, emotional, as you mentioned.
Yeah, if you look at just the emotions that are driving the aggression, then those three are the most common ones. So physical discomfort, the dog is not feeling well, the dog is in pain. Sometimes people use equipment that is painful, that can, activate pain and aggression. Frustration can happen if the dog does not know what to expect, or if the dog is trying to protect something or gain access to something that it finds very valuable. And fear is usually related to bad experiences in the past, or negative expectations. So thinking that the human may hurt them, or, they feel threatened by the human. And, in many cases, fear is at the root. But people should not forget the physical discomfort part, which is often forgotten. I had a case recently that this owner had already she'd already hired 4 behavioral therapists, and the dog was aggressive to people, to visitors, and especially people who wanted to touch the dog. And I came in, and the first thing I noticed was that the coat of the dog at the back end was standing upwards. And I saw the dog moving, and I thought, those back legs, they're moving pretty stiff. And, I immediately told them to get the dog checked, because I was thinking there may be pain.
Yes.
And they had never thought of this. And that's so sad, actually, because, they were correcting the dog and going like, and that sort of thing, actually creating more fear. And the dog was fearful and in pain, and actually responding aggressively because it was just not feeling well. And I think that's the most important part, is that there's only one type of emotion which is positive, which can drive aggression, and that is prey aggression. And if a dog goes into catching prey, killing prey, then they're probably feeling good. If my dog is hunting mice, she's being aggressive, but she feels good about it.
Right.
But almost all other cases of aggression are negative emotions. So if you want to work at them, you have to make sure the dog starts to feel better and gain positive experiences. Because
can you tap into a little bit into the solutions? Once we know now we know why it's aggressive. Can we talk about some solutions? How do you deal with aggression?
So an example of fear, if it's fear-driven aggression, then, and it's towards people, then people coming into if the dog senses people, if it hears people, sees people, or people touch it, whatever, it activates fear, and the fear drives the aggressive response. And the aggression, the function of it is to make the trigger back off and to stop the interaction. So we need to think about that function of the aggression. And you can work with that. You can, it actually gives relief, right? So the dog is aggressive, you back off, and then it gives the dog a relief. So you can work with that and use relief as a reward, just an example, and approach the dog. And as long as the dog is calm, you walk away. So you increase distance. So the dog may feel relief and be like, wow, that's nice that you're backing off. And I didn't have to use aggression this time. And you can work with that. That could be an example, so using relief. But another example could be using rewards. And in that case, I would probably use food because, well, it depends on the dog really, but most dogs get aroused by play. And food, if you take a reinforcer, food which can just be taken in, thrown on the ground so the dog has a sniff, that calms the mind. So then I ask the dog, don't ask the dog, the owner or the family members that the dog already trusts. So that's important, that the dog has people that it trusts. Those are the people that are going to reward the dog for calm behavior when it has interactions with something that used to trigger fear. And in many cases, if a dog can earn food and score food, the brain will decide that is more interesting and more beneficial to the welfare than being fearful. And if you're at the right distance, you can start to create a new association and teach the dog that people predict nice things. So that's two examples.
So let me ask you, for example, you're saying relief, right? Relief could be...
Yeah, relief is something that you can use.
So, for example, this is the dog, and the human, the dog barks or growls or whatever, and the human keeps a distance, and the dog gets into relief. Now, when do you when do you reward the dog, or when does the dog learn that? Because every time this happens, the dog reacts to the human.
Yeah. Okay, that's important. It's good that you asked this, because There's always a distance at which the dog is not yet reacting.
Mm-hmm.
So for some dogs, they only react when the human is this close. They start to react.
Right.
But when the human is around here, they can still look at the human and be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be the distance at which you will start training.
Mm-hmm.
And you will teach the dog that looking at the human, which triggers fear, but not at this distance yet. It looks at the human and is calm, and then the human walks away. And then the dog will be like, well, I kind of managed that situation without barking. And that's when you can see a dog starting to learn and starting to realize that the human is not that dangerous after all. And very often I combine this with a check-in. So teaching a dog to look at the trigger and then turning around to the owner. And as soon as the dog looks at the owner rewards it by moving away. And the dog will soon learn that if he sees something that he finds threatening, he can look at the owner and the owner will help out. So that is using relief as a reward.
Yes, that's interesting. And so the
emotional relief.
Yeah, yes. So the owner also has a big role in this process, right?
Yes.
So how would you say, or what would you say the role of a dog owner is in this case, for example? Is it 100% or is it like?
The owner will function as a safe haven for the dog in this case. You know, if it's a dog that is fearfully aggressive towards humans, you can use the owner as a safe haven, which can provide the rewards, the relief or the treats or the whatever suits the dog best.
Right.
But the owner is very important. And sometimes in cases I will work on establishing a relationship with the dog first. So gaining a relationship with the dog so that I can show the owner how it's done. I often do that, but it depends on the dog, because some dogs are just so fearful, but they're not fearful of the owner. And then I definitely use the owner as a safe haven. And I explain to the owner what to do and how to respond. But it's important to always do the therapy at a point where the dog is not yet emotionally aroused in the unwanted behavior. Because every time the dog practices the unwanted behavior, it's, you know, neurologically it's strengthened in the brain, the path.
Right.
And because it is successful for dogs, it's harder to tackle, it's harder to modify if the dog has practiced it a lot. And it's very important to realize, and I always tell my clients this, that, you know, in behavioral therapy, if the dog is showing problem behavior, that we're actually trying to tell the brain, like, okay, this strategy that you've got there, this coping strategy, which is really successful for your body right now, yeah, we want to change that, because we humans, we don't like the aggression part. So could you please change it? And that is a pretty hard task, especially if it's so successful for a dog.
Right.
So we're actually asking a dog to do something which is not logical for the dog, because, you know, aggression is very functional for dogs.
So realistically, I know the answer, but how long would you look at to changing that behavior, changing that concept in the dog? Realistically.
What do you think the answer is?
Well, I would say
two words. It depends.
It depends. Yes.
Yeah.
But you know, people always, you know, dog owners, they always want this time because we want solutions. We want easy, digestible solution.
Yeah.
But I'd say a year. You know, that's the realistic.
Yeah. I always tell people that it depends, and I explain to them that we're definitely trying to change the neurological process. And I know that sounds very complicated, but that's what it is. It is pretty complicated. So I tell people, and I often use analogies. I tell people that I'm afraid of spiders. And, you know, a very long time when I saw a spider, I killed it. So that's fear-driven aggression, I tell these people. And, you know, it's not a question of getting used to it. I've seen many spiders. I'm almost 38 years old, and I'm still afraid of spiders. But I have learned, you know, by gathering more information on spiders, I've learned to be a little bit more, you know, to restrain my aggression a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with dogs. So use analogies, because then people really start to realize, oh yeah, I'm scared of, you know, insects too, right. Stinging insects, an example. And it's very hard to change your behavior. Same thing is like if you like to drink alcohol, or if you smoke, or, you know, it's something, I always find that if I use analogies like that, then people start to, you know, they don't set the timeline anymore. They start to become more realistic, because I tell them, you know, we're animals too, and your dog is a complex mammal too. So we can't program it. It's not a robot. And often when I get emails from people who want to, you know, who are interested in hiring me, and they tell me, you know, I have this problem, that problem, that problem. How can you solve it for me? And I always reply to them that I don't solve problems. I go to people and I share knowledge. And, you know, I hope it will help you, but I can't solve your problem, and I don't give any guarantees.
Yes.
Because that's not realistic, because, you know, they're animals.
That's the question that I had is, can we completely rehabilitate or get guaranteed or 100% results when training or working with a dog?
No, I'm absolutely certain we can't guarantee, but we can get amazing results. I mean, I've had amazing results with cases that I wouldn't have believed. So you can, sometimes it's really unexpected that the dog is so enthusiastic and is willing to change its behavior really fast. So that happens. And other times it's a struggle. And you know, it really depends. Sometimes I can really solve a case and it's like, whoa, this was so easy. And other times I'm telling people to stop trying and to start looking at other ways to live with this dog and to de-stress themselves. You know, I've had those cases too, where people were hiring all kinds of therapists, and I'd be like, yeah, but maybe you need to stop. Maybe you need to accept your dog and look at all the things that you have going. You look at all the things that are good, that are going really well, and stop focusing on that one thing that is not going well. And that can also be, you know, that's also the welfare-based training that I'm talking about, that you also look at the humans and the family members. Sometimes if I tell people that they don't have to go to the dog park and unleash their dog, they don't have to do that for the welfare of their dog. And they're like so relieved.
Wow, yeah.
So, you know, it depends, you know, on the dog. So, and on the family. So, no guarantees for me. Yeah, no. And I also don't do the before and after videos.
Right. I hate those too. I don't do those either.
Yeah. Don't do it.
No, it's just because it's not realistic. You know, it does create some drama and some emotional reaction, but it's all for...
They're easy to make, right? Yes. I mean, we can make those videos. It's very easy.
Yeah, but it's not realistic.
It's not realistic. No.
I'll give you an example. Many years ago, there was this case that the dog was food aggressive, and to the point that the owner couldn't be in the same room as the dog was eating, or, you know, the food was present. So they hired trainers, and one of the last trainer had suggested to exercise the dog like 3, 4, 5 hours a day, and then starve the dog.
Oh no!
Right? So not eating food. So that was their solution, right? And when I met the dog was like, you know, the dog was furry, so you couldn't really see. but if you touched it, you could see bone and skeleton, and even more aggressive. The owner had told me that it's not now even more aggressive. So I said, first of all, your dog is unhealthy. Second of all, is starving. Third of all, is in pain. Fourth of all, mentally is just, ruined.
So sad.
Ruined, right?
Yeah.
So I just said, for your homework for next month or two is just to feed the dog. Put the food in the room, leave the room.
Yeah.
Just let
the dog eat in peace.
In peace, yeah. It's not a matter of training now. This is matter of surviving. Letting the dog to survive. So we do. Some dog trainers, some people, they do go to that level in the name of training, in the name of helping dog owners, and I'm sure that dog trainer meant well, wanted to help.
Oh yeah. I'm sure they all mean well. I'm genuinely, I'm sure they mean well, and they truly believe that what they're doing is the right thing.
Right.
I'm absolutely certain about that. But it's very sad because it has to do with education and
exactly,
and being willing to learn. It's so sad that some dog trainers are really popular and they have this huge audience and they could do so much good, yet they're not willing to learn or to change.
Right.
And I don't know these trainers personally, so there must be other things driving their behavior as well. I mean, they're animals too.
Yeah.
But it's also, I always feel sorry for it because I'm saddened by that because it really it's a shame because we could do a lot better.
Of course, you see I think the reason they're continuing on that format is because they see not results from dogs' point of view, but they see the results from their popularity, their
exactly, and avoidance. Avoidance training, conditioning. It works so fast, and it's really reinforcing to the humans.
Exactly.
Plus, a lot of humans like to watch that. They enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it's more entertaining, and you can't compete with that. If I would have to show people what I do with dogs, sessions can be really boring.
Oh, yes.
Really boring.
Yeah, there's nothing much happening.
No, nothing is happening, and I'm like really excited that the dog is just sniffing and seeing the trigger and sniffing and sniffing. And I'm like, yay, this is so good. People want to see active. They want to see
action.
They want to see action. So
exactly. Other concept that I wanted you also to talk about, if you don't mind, is matter of positive and negative experiences for dogs. Do dogs need to have always positive reinforcement, or is it okay to have negative reinforcement, or is it okay to have both?